Hello everyone, thank you for joining the webinar on framing timber, walls, floors and roofs in Revit using AGACAD's wood framing suite. So welcome to our webinar. My name is Pavlos. I'm BIM application engineer here at AGACAD. In AGACAD, we create applications for Autodesk Revit based on the needs of world's leading BIM practitioners. Our aim is to eliminate tasks that do not create value. AGACAD has developed the widest range of true BIM software in the world. It covers wood and metal framing, precast concrete design, and MEP systems design. And today we're going to turn our focus to wood framing suite that is primarily designed for creating timber frames for elements such as walls, roofs and floors, as well as trusses for your roofs and floors within Revit platform. Wood framing BIM solution for Revit has also been recognized as an AEC industry partner solution by Autodesk itself. And talking about the entire package of wood framing suite, let's briefly go through what's included in the package. So we have Wall Plus, that's primarily dealing with traditional prefabricated wall framing scenarios. We can auto-generate detailed multi-layered wall framing using certain rules and predefined parameters, and we can find structural engineering clashes. We can cut and frame openings according to predefined rules, and basically we can spread all our structural framing across the wall frame. More than that, we can auto-generate layers of sheathing, paneling, cladding, and all that. That also includes Floor Plus. That's also dealing with traditional prefabricated framing. So same thing here. We can auto-distribute structural framing members within our floors. We can create openings and frame around those openings. We can also create floor trusses and create openings within those trusses to accommodate any sort of MEP services passing through. And here on the right bottom right hand corner, you can see a snippet from where we have a multi-story building that has floor panels broken up into smaller segments using floor panel layout. We also have Roof Plus within the wood framing suite package that also deals with traditional prefabricated framing. In this case, we have tailored Roof Plus to specifically deal with prefabricated roof panels, rafter systems as well, and whether you framing rafters or using prefabricated timber panels. So same thing here, we can create configurations and distribute structural framing, sheathing, paneling, and external roofing as well. And also we can export data to CNC machines and cut those structural framing members. Sorry. Also within the package we have Truss Plus for roof and floor trusses. So we have a few snippets here just below the text where we have residential roof truss systems generated, and on the right hand side we have a floor trusses generated automatically. And what we're going to cover in this webinar, I'm going to look at a residential typology where I'm going to try to frame most of the building, hopefully, if we don't run out of time. And again, I'm going to show you a couple of features within our wood framing suite, and generally give you an idea of what to expect and just generally a capability of our software. So what we're going to end up with, we're going to attempt to frame most of our residential project within Revit. We're going to distribute structural framing for roofs, walls, and floors, and finish off the tutorial. We're going to create shop drawings, and we're going to export one of the roof panels to CNC machine. So I'm just going to show you how the export works. We have this new thing going on, getting started sessions, specifically aimed at wood framing suite. So if anyone of you are interested in testing the software for yourself, you can do that. Just download our free 2-week trial from our website. And at the end of this month, we're organizing 45-minute training session that's free of charge. And you can join the session and get a better insight of how to generally use the tool at the moment of where you're just beginning using such framing tools. Okay, so let's move on to our Revit project. So here I have a few Revit sessions open. First of all, once you download Tools for BIM doc from our website, so for example, you want to start using your free trial, you first download the Tools for BIM doc, which I'll show you how to do that later. And once you install it on your workstation, you have your Tools for BIM doc appear at the top of your Revit ribbon. If you click that and then click Show Doc, we have our Tools for BIM doc on your right-hand side. If you just expand it, and if you just navigate within the menu, depending on what you're looking for, so in this case, wood framing, and here we have, again, entire wood framing suite and all these items within. So we have smart walls, sort mark, smart assemblies, cut opening. Then we have truss plus, wall plus, floor plus, roof plus. So the 4 main tool sets. And then we have roof panel layout, floor panel layout, smart connections. So just having all of those tools available shouldn't have any more obstacles framing various kind of projects and scenarios. Okay, so for example, if I want to use Wall Plus, I can click this small icon and it takes me to the section of ribbon where it says wood framing. What I'm going to do is just pull out Wall Plus panel, and then I'm going to close this and I'm just going to reopen my project browser. Okay, so in here, what I have done, I have framed some of the elements within this small project. It's a residential house. So I'm going to demonstrate you how you can frame, how you can create configurations and frame elements within Revit, just having your basic Revit elements ready. So in this case, my walls, roofs, and floors are in place. They are set up according to the build-up of each element that I wanted. So in this case, I have a wall that's 400 millimeters thick. And then I have described materials, function, thicknesses, so my build-up is ready to go. So all of that is sort of done before actually I begin any of the framing tasks. So whether it's a new project, you go to settings, load your families. Our tools work with Revit families. So when you download our tools, they come together with specific Revit families, and most of them are under structural framing category. So if I go to families and I've loaded those families into my new project, if I look for structural framing, under that I have all of my families I've loaded into the project from our tools. So right here, settings, load families, those families are going to appear within your project. And once you have those families ready, you can then create your framing configurations. You assume have your Revit elements ready, and what you do with that, you link wall in this case. So I'm going to link, basically I'm mapping Revit side of things to Wall Plus interface. So these are functions, materials, and thicknesses I've described in Revit wall, and then I'm describing what layer does what and what configuration I want to use within that certain layer. Okay, so that's all been set up. You also have default configurations, which are just enough to get you going. Okay, so what I'm going to do first, I'm going to frame this wall to get my main load-bearing frame in place. Okay, and during the webinar, if you have any questions, you have the you have the questions tab in which you can write your questions, and someone has wrote that please turn your audio up. So I'm gonna turn up my microphone. Okay, so hopefully you can hear me better. Okay, and in Revit parts visibility, I'm gonna switch to show original to be able to see my frame, which I've just framed. So that's my frame, that's all in place. If there are any changes that happen during the process, you can either go via configurations and make those changes there and then reframe your wall or update the frame. The other way to do that is if you go to modify frame and click any structural framing member, for example, this one here. And I'm able to adjust, in this case, end connection that I'm interested in, and I can add or remove certain items within the frame. If I click OK, this should take effect immediately and frame the side of the wall according to how I defined in configurations. I'm just wondering if you can all hear me fine. I've turned up my microphone gain, so hopefully you're hearing me properly. The webinar is also being recorded. So once it's over, I think at the end of this week, we're going to share the recording with you on our YouTube channel. Okay, so that additional stud I've placed is in place. Okay, so what I'm going to do is frame this wall above, and once that's done, I'm going to align my studs. So ground floor wall with first floor wall, I'm going to align those studs. Okay, if I go to here, align elements, and I'm gonna align studs with other elements. Just gonna select this one and then that one, and it's gonna automatically align those two studs. Okay, my studs are aligned now. So what next we can do, we can add some details. So if I go to add modify details selection, I have the small window pop up. If I add details and then select structural member I'm interested in, and I'm gonna use this configuration with default details that come together with the tool. I'm gonna add those details. Okay, we have anchor bolts and stud to bottom plate angle, so brackets in place, and we have service holes added to the noggings and those bracket angles as well. Okay, so what else we can do with this frame, because it has additional layers. If I go select the wall first of all, and then if I go to frame wall drop down menu, I'm gonna frame all additional layers. So there are additional 4 layers on both sides of the main frame, and I'm going to add those layers with just one click and add all remaining layers. Okay, while it's doing that, in our on our website, if you go to Wood Framing Suite, again you can see all the features of the suite and key benefits. So you can see the items I've already mentioned that are included within Wood Framing Suite, and further also. So this is another example here I'm going to touch on later. So for example, if you're struggling with some sort of configuration or something within our tools, if you go to settings eHelp, it's going to take you to our eHelp web page of Wood Framing Suite, in this case wall, and we have webinar recordings here, some video content, which should be plenty for you to sort of get you going in terms of framing and building configurations. We have sample projects, and more importantly, we have technical documentation that includes, should include most of the answers to your questions you're going to have in terms of wall plus in this case. So if you can just type configurations or basically anything that you're struggling with. you're going to have a selection of things, and according to what exactly is the issue, you just navigate to a specific page to look for an answer. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, so I've added our siding and all additional layers. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to update the siding. So if I select this, I'm going to remove this framing bottom base offset to pull it down or extend it downwards. Okay, and then if I just manipulate my scope box, I can see my secondary frame and nailers, horizontal nailers are in place, vertical nailers as well, and the main studs are also in place. So what's left to do with this wall, if I switch to see both parts and original, and then I'm gonna split parts for this wall. By splitting parts, I'm actually generating my two internal layers of plasterboard, external sheathing layer over my wall frame, and also insulation in between studs. Okay, if you have a powerful workstation and you have 10 walls lined up of the same type, you can do multi-framing or split parts for all those walls in just a few clicks rather than doing one by one. Okay, so I have my insulation in place. Both insulation layers between the studs and outside of my main wall frame. Okay, if I go to identity data, I can see it's insulation. I can get my framing member volume and member SWOT mark. So all this identification later on can be scheduled to our drawings. Okay, so and also my two layers of plasterboard are in place as well. Okay, so let's see what else is missing here. Right, so I'll just expand this. Okay, I've already generated a few walls and joints are working properly, and I have my inner lining of plasterboard as well. And let's just generate a few more walls that still haven't been framed. Okay, I have 4 walls selected. If I go to frame wall, all those internal partitions are of the same type, same build-up, so that shouldn't take too long to generate those 4 walls, and perhaps we can also split parts to get our additional layers of board. Okay, the other thing I would recommend for starting using our tools, if you head to our YouTube channel, there's quite a lot of content, especially over the last few months that we have generated. More to do with webinars, and we publish those recordings on our YouTube channel. So we have framing metal walls, floors and roofs. That's a week ago. That's quite interesting one. Heavy timber framing, post and beam construction method 2 weeks ago. That's quite interesting. Roofs. We have touched a bit more on roofs in our previous webinar, which you can access and have a look of the process we went through. And many more webinars exporting wood metal frames to CNC and all similar kind of stuff. So you can access that content for free just going to our YouTube channel. Okay, while we're still waiting, I can show you our sample Wall Plus project, which you can also download from our website. So in this case, we have simple Revit walls that have been framed using default configurations. Okay, and those walls have already have assemblies created for them. So those walls, in essence, are Revit assemblies. Okay, with some identity data information. And what that means that when we create assemblies, so if I open my Wall Plus, So when we create assemblies in this menu, we essentially create drawings, shop drawings. Drawings configurations, we can describe what views and how many of them and what types of schedule we want to create, what sort of dimensioning rules we want to apply and tagging, etc. So we can describe all of that in drawing configurations, and then we can create assemblies out of Revit walls. And essentially, so that's wall number 2. So if we navigate under assemblies in our project browser and look for wall number 2, and here we can see among quite a few views and schedules, we have also 4 sheets generated automatically, and those sheets contain drawings and schedules of that exact wall. So I have highlighted this assembly, so that's the exact same wall, and we have schedules of vertical siding, what else, horizontal nailers, count, cut length, and mass, what it is and its marking, and dimensions are also put automatically according to your rules that you want to use. Connections are also in place. Okay. Just going to show you an example of those drawings. So our sheathing is also in place. Okay. Okay. And all that is done automatically. So you create your wall frame using your configurations, then you number elements to get all your identity data parameters filled in, and then you simply create assembly. Okay, and end result is you're going to have your wall, floor, or roof assemblies and shop drawings created automatically. Okay, let's have a look. Right, so I have those ground floor wall, partition walls framed up. So the other handy tool I want to show you is Smart Walls. That's also part of wood framing suite. So if I pull this out, so what I do in this situation, among a few other things it can do, I'm just going to go to split wall menu. And I have this Revit wall that runs throughout almost entire length of my house. So what I want to do in split settings, I can describe how I want to split the wall into sort of segments. And once I describe those dimensions, I have quite a few selections of how I can do that. I can split in half. So that's I'm simply just going to split the wall in half, and I can join 2 halves, so I can split by maximum spacing, which I'm quite interested in. Okay, so I split this part of the wall into 3 segments. So what I'm going to do is select all 4 of those and just frame that wall. Then I'm going to add additional layers and split parts to get my sheathing, and then we're going to move on to framing floors. Okay, so while it's doing that, what I can do is go to this Roof Plus sample project. So roofs typically, if you're using prefabricated roof panels, you can split, just like I've done with Smart Walls, you can split with the roof panel layout tool into segments, again, according to how you describe in configurations or split settings. So you have your Revit roof, you generate layout lines that are in red and blue lines that are region lines. Okay, and then you just split those into individual panels. Or if you're using rafter construction method, you just split the roof by face, and then you frame those faces that you have generated. Okay, and you get your rafters. Okay, but in this case, what I wanted to show you, so this panel actually has I actually have a drawing for that panel. So same way, we have sheeting, secondary frame, batten frame. If you go to this one, okay, we have the main frame, I believe. Going back to the main 3D view, I wanted to show you our CNC Export. So depending on what CNC machine you are using, depending on the manufacturer of the machine, in this case, well, we cover most popular CNC manufacturers, and depending on the company, we have created certain exporters for each manufacturer. So in this case, I have Weinmann exporter. So what I can do in the drop-down menu, if I go to export selected roof frames to CNC, and I select this panel. So once selection is done, well, it allows you to sort of multi-select more than one panel, but in this case I'm interested in just one. Once selection is done, click escape, and then according to the configuration you have defined, in this case I'm just using the default configuration, click OK, and what it's going to do is generate file format, WUP file format, which I'm going to open just now. If I paste the file path, it should automatically open in my CNC file viewer, and I have exact same panel. In this case, that's just the main frame of the panel that I can further inspect and send to be cut by the machine. Okay. Okay, so those 4 walls are framed. If I select, just save time, select this one. If I split parts, I'm going to get my sheeting layers. And I believe this one also has insulation between the main frame. Okay, there I have my plasterboard. And what it's just missing is the secondary frame. Okay, and there we have it, our insulation in between studs and in the separate layer, battens, vertical battens, and 2 layers of plasterboard. Okay, so that's all done. The other quick thing I want to show you. Okay, so if the changes that need to take place and you have your wall frame already in place, we can modify opening and select a framing element or a junction you have in question. If you go to custom sill, what I can do, I can add additional sill elements. Okay, cuts. Okay, if I click OK, it's going to update the wall frame according to how I just have defined, and this should take place. Okay, so you can either do it via update your frame or opening, or go via configurations. Okay, so that's those additional horizontal elements are in place, those plates are in place, and my bottom cripple studs have been, just being hard to select, have been cut accordingly, and they accommodate the new additional elements I've created. Okay. Right, so let's now frame our floors. Okay, so I've Revit floors just the same way I had my walls. If I select those 3 floor elements, and if I just go to wood framing floor plus, if I frame those floors, I should be able to get my main frame in place. Okay, in this case I have decomposed my Revit floors, so just below I have my ceiling layer, and above I have my flooring layer with battens and flooring itself. So I'm going to generate main frames first, and then for the couple of those rooms on each end, I'm going to produce ceilings and flooring as well. Okay, and just to give you a hint, that's the same project, just has been finished. You can see the frame, is in place. Windows, doors, even furniture and all that is already in place. In this case, I think we are using rafter system, and we're cutting at the top plate of our wall. We have floor systems in place. Okay, just a 2-story residential house. You can also add roofing, siding, wall siding, like I have showed you. And if we go to ground floor plan, and we can see those elements have been distributed according to my configurations. Okay, and the junctions have been resolved. Even if I had some issues, I was able to resolve those junctions simply by manipulating configurations. Okay, so I have those floors in place. What I can do for those, if I just select, actually I'm selecting parts. If I switch back to see original, I'm going to split parts for those floors to remove any parts in between my joists. Okay, so go back to the finished project. We can see the details that we can generate. Okay, so each structural framing element is actually a Revit family itself. Like I mentioned, if you go to families, look for structural framing members. Even when you select one, you can see that in this case it's a wood framing plate, size, lumber, and each family has quite a lot of parameters loaded, and those families together with the tool. Of course, you can create your own families. You can continue to modify our families, but typically they are sufficient to have your frames and drawings done properly. Okay, if you go to edit type, you can duplicate. For example, if you want to have a different size, you can duplicate and describe height and width of your plate, material, and some additional parameters that you can set depending on the family. Some families have more parameters, some have a few parameters less. But yeah, so that's our installation. Perhaps the service hole shouldn't be there, but we could omit that hole using configurations, and our siding is in place as well. So that's just a sample sort of setup here. Okay, so I've split those parts. Right, so if I go back to see both. So in here I have my ceiling, and if I go to frame, I'm not able to frame because this isn't the main frame I've used. I've used battens. So if I add battens, it's going to distribute those battens that in essence are just some sort of metal profiles on which I hang my plasterboard. Okay. Make sure you select the entire ceiling, not the parts, and then what we're missing, just splitting parts for that to get our 2 layers of plasterboard. Okay, we can also provide some detailing if we need, like clipping on plasterboard to metal profile detailing. Okay, and right here I have my floor, additional floor, so that also has battens. And I'm going to split part to get my floor tiles in this case. Okay, if I split parts, just select that floor element. Okay, and I have my tiles for which I can provide additional profile or divisions of gap. If I wanted to, I can also define the size and how the rules they are laid out within the room. Okay, and in this case, I have the same layer of battens, which I'm not going to generate, but I'm going to generate floorboards I have provided, and there's a millimeter gap in between each board, and all that can be further manipulated. Okay, and I believe now those two walls on each side missing frame, so I'm going to frame those walls. And then I'm going to continue to frame the roof. Okay, so while it's generating quickly, we go back to our main web page. We do have a deal: get 12 months and get 6 months for free. The offer is exclusive and only runs until August the 15th. So if you are interested, have a look on our website, more about a midsummer sale. Okay, if I scroll down, I can access my free trials. So on this page, I have my overview. It generally describes how to use the tools for BIM doc, in which you're going to find all your tools and updates. If I go to getting started, I have some text PDF documents talking about trials, standalone licenses, doc and tools, etc. Some video content, again, of how to use it. If I go to download section, I can download tools for BIM doc for Revit 19, 20, and 21. Okay. Once you download, you just install and follow instructions on how to use it. Okay, so I have what I've done. Oh yeah, I've generated those frames on each side. So I switch to see original. I can see how our main frame connects to windows and frames on each side. Okay, so that's done, and I have this ridge beam running across my and the longitude of the building footprint. So what I'm going to do, go to Wall Plus, cut, delete, move, tool. All right. And what I want to do is cut beam with solid. So all solid elements that clash within the beam, in this case, our frame elements, are going to be cut to accommodate this beam right here. Okay, so those wall frames have been generated. We seem to be fine. Okay, and one last piece I have is my roof, which again, configurations are set up. For this roof, I go to Roof Plus. I'm running out of space, but if I go to Frame Roof, I'm going to get my rafters in place. Okay, I have my rafters, which I can further configure if I want it. Again, I just forgot to cut those, so I'm going to cut beam with solid, cut the ridge beam to get my cut into the rafter right at the top. So it's done. It has framed around openings as well. What I'm going to do is select the roof. Okay, I've added my battens, and I can add a secondary frame. In this way, I can continue adding my roofing and framing the other side of the roof, whether I have rafter or prefabricated roof panels. Okay, more on the roof we have covered in a roof webinar 2 weeks ago. So we can have a look in at the webinar recording to get more insight of how to use prefabricated panels, rafters, and trusses. Okay, but more or less, we see that's it's all in place. And again, I can configure openings depending on sort of details I'm working to. Okay, so if I take this back. Okay. Isn't quite finished yet, but just to get the sense of sense of the workflow and how you would continue working. Thanks to everyone for attending. Have a good day.
AGACAD, building BIM together.